Welcome to Advanced Watercolor Portraiture Part 3. We're going to be covering figures here. There are two figures in the portrait. That includes mixing the colors for their skins, and we're going to work on the lighting for them and shading, as well as painting the hair on the figures. Okay, the next step for us is to mix up a couple of skin tones. We're going to go ahead and mix up the skin tone of the mother model, which is slightly tan, has a little bit of olive in there. Not too much olive though, because she'll end up looking like a zombie. So we'll put a little green to the side here, but we won't get carried away with that green. I have basically a ochre color. I'm going to use some white here. She's not like that quilt, and the colors in the quilt that we were painting earlier that are essentially white with a very light ink printed on top of the quilt. Her skin's not like that. It can be a little muted. So it's okay to put a little white in there. Don't get carried away with it. Just put all these on the side. Your base color is going to be the ochre, and then we'll use the other colors to highlight it as needed. Put a touch of red in there, give her a little bit of color, and if we need to, and this is just a vermilion, sorry. There's a vermilion, and we may pull a little bit of burnt sienna in there too. Just some of the traditional colors that you see in skin tones. The interesting part is that the baby's skin tone is pink. It's a little pinker, a little baby, you know. So when we mix up its skin tone, we'll do something similar to what we've done for the mother model, but we'll mix it up a little pinker, and what it'll do is it'll also help that baby pop out, so you see it a little more readily when you're looking at the paint. we're going to mix up the baby skin color. And that is going to be basically starting off with the same colors as the mom. We had yellow ochre, 2 parts yellow ochre, 2 parts vermilion, and then 1 part white paint. And that ended up making this nice little slightly pink color. It's a little pinker than the mom's skin. And if you look in the original, you don't have the original photo, but in the original photo, the baby skin's a little pinker, so we want that to show up. When we put it in here, we want it to be just a little slightly pinker than the mom. We don't want to get too crazy with the reds though, because they could come out looking like a Martian. So just a little pink will help. And I did add a little bit of white this time, just to help make that a bit more pastel. But we're going to keep it really dilute when we add the colors to the baby. And we're going to cover the entire baby here, including where his hair is, because the hair is real thin, and then we'll come back and lay the hair on top of that. Okay, so after I finished up painting all the shadows on the baby, I did realize that the baby came out a little bit pinker relative to the mom than I wanted. So here's a good opportunity to see how you can potentially fix something that didn't come out exactly the way you wanted to. What I did was I took the same baby color, the pink that we had mixed up, and I went to all the darker edges, all the shadows in the mom, like along the toes, along the base of the knee here, the thigh, all the darker shadows along the hands, the neck, the arm, all these spots, and I went back with that pink. And I laid in a light layer of that pink color on top of the mom, which allowed her to be more in harmony with the baby. Instead of having two distinct colors, now they have a mix of colors in between. And we may even do some more of that when we get into coloring pencils later, when we add the finer details. But you can do that easily. Just look at your painting from time to time and see if you have something that's a little bit out of balance or a little out of harmony, and see how you can use that same color in other places to help bring the harmony back into balance. The next thing we're going to do is the model's hair. And the model has highlights, blonde highlights, sitting on top of some darker natural blonde highlights, and then it goes into a darker brown color. So we're all going to start a light color, the light yellow, and then go to the darker brown. We're going to take the same palette, add in browns and browns and browns until we get it as dark as we want as we get closer to the roots. So we started out with a two-part mixture of lemon yellow, one part mix of white, and a one-part mix of the yellow ochre. That got the yellow to a point that wasn't so lemony colored for me. And those are going to be the very tips of the highlights. And as we get closer to the root, we'll put in some brown. I didn't want to use too much white. We discussed not doing that because it hurts the luminescence of the paper coming through. But I thought it was necessary to take away some of the bite that the hard yellow had. Alright? So these will just start out. And we're laying in base color. Of course, when we come back with Prismacolor, we'll lay on top of this. What you don't want to have happen is a bunch of white spots sitting in your artwork where you just left the paper untouched, whether it was Prismacolor, Watercolor, or whatever. Well, I mean, you might want to have that, but generally speaking, what it does is it damages the realism of the painting. It looks unfinished. So we're just going to start out with a nice base coat of yellow. Try to follow some of those hair strokes. Now, of course, here, you remember we have some overlapping of the quilt in her hair and her shoulder in her hair. So that's why we're going to use Prismacolors later, in addition to these, is because we'll be able to sit that hair on top of the shoulders, even though it has some of the remnants of the base color underneath. You can also do it with a watercolor. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. You just have to put thicker and thicker watercolor, which is fine. I just happen to want to use Prismacolors on this project too. So when it comes time for the darker colors, or I should say the denser colors, then we're going to use Prismacolors for that. Alright, so we're just kind of strand that into there. There are some highlights getting to the scalp, so we want to make sure we have some yellow up in there for that. And we'll come back while that's drying. We'll go to the other side. There's going to be a lot of layers. Not women's hair, but I guess hair in general, have lots of layers. If it's highlighted, especially if it's highlighted with multiple colors, has lots of layers. So you can work on this, and the more layers you add, the more energy in your colors, or the more complex your colors, I think the closer to reality you'll get. Don't just paint a flat coat of yellow and be done. It just won't look as realistic as you could possibly get it. Hair is probably one of the hardest things to create convincingly in a lot of mediums. some of this yellow running right up to the face. So we're going to pull that in. And we don't see a whole lot of highlights here, so we'll leave that fairly dark. Nice base coat yellow. Again, not too lemony. Women don't really have lemony hair. Now we're going to add in some, where's it at? Now we're going to start adding in bits of burnt sienna to the yellow, and maybe some more yellow ochre to build those browns as we get closer and closer to the scalp. Okay, here's an idea where I took the burnt sienna and the yellow ochre, and you can see the little bit of oranger color here that's different. That's the original yellow mixture that we made earlier. Here's the darker value. It's got a little red in there, and as we get closer and closer to brown, then that red will help us carry to the brown. Okay, this next brown was created with more of the burnt sienna, as well as the green ochre. No, sea green. The sea green that we used earlier in the painting. So mix those in up. They're fairly opaque. It's a nice little brown, starting to really get into the higher contrast levels of the painting. is true to some degree for men. But if you look at a lot of, I want to say, fantasy artwork, or even nice photography that is conscious of this, put a few strands of hair in front of the model's face. If you can cross their eye with it, that's wonderful. It adds a nice little elegance to the portrait, as if you happen to catch it at just the right time, right when that hair fell across their face. Alright, so this is a mixture of 2 parts burnt sienna, 1 part of the sap green, and then 1 part black. Makes a nice little natural brown. That we're going to use that for the dark brown parts of the hair, also for the eyebrows, eyelashes. Now we're working on the lips here. Just adding a little bit of crimson red and a light mix of yellow ochre. There'll be a darker layer on the top lip, and then very translucent on the bottom. You don't want just a bright red. You want some sort of more organic looking red. So also leave just a little bit of the lip without color on the bottom. That'll add a sense of reflected light. Not too much, because you don't want it to look all glamour shots, but a little bit will help. We're going to carry that same color out to the fingernails and to the toenails.